G'day guys, welcome to tonight's workshop. It is February 2024 and tonight we're talking about balanced spines. It's about giving your heart some love. All right, it is Heart Awareness Month in February. There's a lot of things that go on in regards to the heart and how much it affects a lot more things than we actually think about. And so today we're talking about how we can give love back to our heart through chiropractic care. So a bit of a play on Valentine's Day with balanced spines. So joining us tonight, we're going to go through a little bit of information about what is going on with your heart, how it has been affected throughout the different lifestyle changes that we have, along with what we can do for chiropractic care to assist with heart health. All right, so let's just dive straight in. So we're talking about heart disease. It's an absolute killer, literally an absolute killer here in the United States. All right, heart disease continues to plague our nation, straining the healthcare system, and silently taking numerous victims. While family history and genetics play a pivotal role, along with some other things such as pathology, physiology, inflammation, cellular aging, all those things that you can see on the screen right now, there are lifestyle variabilities and choices that also make a play. And we're going to go through that right now, okay? What makes your heart beat is a question that my stepfather, who is a chiropractor, asked me before I became a chiropractor. It's a very dumb question, okay? And it's something that I always ask our patients when I first meet them. What makes your heart beat? Now, it's a silly question to think about, all right, because a lot of people give out different answers. Now, there's no dumb answer to it, but it's important that we always ask this question when it comes to chiropractic care, and I'll tell you why. So if I was to ask you what makes your heart beat, I've had numerous answers. I've had physiologically, so that's going to be blood. I've had people say oxygen. Some people say muscle twitching, which are all great answers. I've had people say metaphorically, so it could be the big man upstairs, it could be someone's dog, it could be their loved ones, it could be a lot of different things, all right? But the question that I have to ask is what makes your heart beat is in relation to nerves. So even if every nerve in your chest was disconnected, your heart would continue to beat. This is because of a small node of heart muscle rhythmically contracting and relaxing on its own, setting the beat of the heart. So when I ask these patients what makes your heart beat, I always answer with the response, it's actually your nerves. Your nerves make your heart beat. Now it's a weird thing to think about, but the fact that your nerves coordinate your heart rhythm, rate, and function based on this small little node. I'm going to break that down. This particular pacemaker in your body is called the sinoatrial node. All right. In an average adult, it beats at about 70 a minute. Okay. While this natural pacemaker keeps the heart consistently working, there's two things that make it accelerate and decelerate, okay? That is your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I talk about those a lot here in our office because it's so important as it relates to so many different things, all right? And with that being the case, it is the one thing that either increases or decreases your heart rate based on the activity that you're doing, based on the stress level that you're going through, based on a mental stress that could be affecting you, based on a chemical stress that's affecting you. It does a lot of things. So I go back to the fact of that Ronald Reagan sort of analogy of trickle-down economics or trickle-down chiropractic care. It's a stress on the system causing a physical change in response to one system, causing a multitude of effects afterwards, that trickle-down effect, all right? I'm going to break down what that sympathetic and parasympathetic system is, the thing that makes the heart rate go up and makes the heart rate go down. The first thing is the sympathetic nervous system. It is the fight or flight response of your body, okay? The fight or flight response, or as I like to call it, the stress response, is the thing that makes your heart beat faster. So if I open the door and the ravenous dog is sitting there barking its head off at me, I've got two options. I can fight it or I can flight it, okay? It's because your nervous system kicks into overdrive and your sympathetic nervous system says, get the heck out of here or take this thing head on. With that being the fact, it is the stress response. Your body impedes a threat and it has to respond to it. So what does it do? It shuts off all the unvital organs and all the unvital systems that you don't need, such as your urinary tract, your digestive system, things like that. You don't need those things when the dog is barking at you. What you do need is your heart rate to increase, your lungs to start to breathe a little bit faster, your big muscles to start to gain more blood flow because it's a get out of here moment. And so that is the stress response that your body goes through. Now, a stress response doesn't have to come from the barking dog. A stress response can come from an incident at work. someone cutting you off in the street when you're driving. It can come from a life event, such as someone passing. It could come from a monetary sort of side of things. It can come from a multitude of different ways where stress responses kick in. And that's what our sympathetic nervous system is. The opposite of that is rest and digest. All right. Or another way to think about it is relaxation. All right. So another term I heard for rest and digest is feed and breed. Okay. Because it's everything that is typically non-essential in those stress moments. They then have to kick back up. All right. You're going to need your urinary tract and your urinary system at some point. You're going to need your digestive system at some point. You're going to need your reproductive system at some point. Those are the things that brings your body back to normal balance. They were turned off during that stress moment, so they have to be turned back on. Imagine like a little dimmer switch. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of dim light in the room, right? But other times you're going to need the light like at full ball. That is that system of stress and rest, sympathetic versus parasympathetic. You got to have an even balance. It's good to have both. That's what I keep telling patients, is that we need to have both. You can't be just stressed all the time, because that's when bad things happen. But you also can't be too relaxed, because nothing will kick into overdrive when you're going to need it. All right. So the parasympathetic system is the body's response to controlling balance and maintaining control. So that's when all these other things start to come back into play. Heart rate drops, lungs start to calm down a little bit, big muscles relax, recovery. All right. Remember those two systems, because it's important as we go through when it comes to heart health. Heart disease prevention methods have focused mainly on weight control, nutritional choices, exercise, and even prescription medications. But did you know that chiropractic care can help with it too? And that's the point that I want you to take from what I just spoke about when it comes to nerves, that makes your heart beat, that controls how fast and slow it goes, because chiropractic care has an overall effect about that, because we talked about nerves. And that's what nerves and chiropractic care are all about. All right. We are the nervous system doctors. And that's what we're really focused on, is trying to get your nervous system to become more balanced and get that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems to start to play a little bit more ball together and be even. There is a connection, and it's the heart-brain connection. The heart and blood vessels are connected through the central nervous system by millions of tiny connections. One major one is the vagus nerve. All right. There are 12 cranial nerves in your body. These 12 all get protected by the first bone in your neck. Okay? The 10th one is the vagus nerve. And that and the autonomic nervous system, which has the input to the whole system of the body, have to talk together. The nerves control the heart rate and blood pressure, which are both essential for heart health. And since chiropractic care positively impacts those nerves, there are benefits to it, to the heart as well. So you see the connection. The first bone in our neck protects the 10th cranial nerve, which is the vagus nerve, that goes down to the heart and orchestrates the rate, rhythm, and function of the heart. So with that being the case, we have to make the connection between the brain and the body come together, or in this case, the brain and the heart. So that is how we as chiropractors have an effect upon that heart and brain connection, because remember what I said, we're nervous system doctors. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are located in the thoracic and upper cervical spines specifically. So cervical means your neck, thoracic means your mid-back. All right. When chiropractic care makes corrective changes to those misalignments that are sitting in those two areas, we see change in relation to how the rhythm and rate of your heart occurs. So as you can see, that connection between the brain and the heart come together through chiropractic care, because all those nerves triculate throughout the system and go to that heart, which makes it beat, giving that rate, that rhythm, and that function operating at its best potential. With that being said, the sympathetic nervous system I mentioned was sitting in between our shoulders all the way down to about mid-lower back. That's where the main sympathetic nervous system lies. If there's misalignments there that are causing interference, that can be a problem. Even more so, if there is misalignments in the parasympathetic nervous system, that part that I mentioned upstairs, then that can be causing even greater effect, because that means that the thing that's going to be able to bring you back down to base level, that's going to help that heart rate drop, it's going to cause inflammation to decrease, cannot do that because of that first bone being misaligned, or that cervical bones being misaligned. What can chiropractic care do for the heart? Well, one, it lowers blood pressure, like I just mentioned. All right. Studies have shown that a significant improvement in blood pressure when a chiropractor adjusts the first vertebra, which is called the atlas bone, that's C1 that I just mentioned. The 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, is protected by that first bone in your neck. If there's pressure or misalignment at the C1 vertebra, that atlas bone, it can affect the rate, rhythm, and function of the heart. So that is how chiropractic care can help when it comes to lowering blood pressure. If there's better communication between the first bone of our neck, which protects that 10th cranial nerve that goes down to the heart and back up, keeping that brain-heart connection working better, more functional, and operating at 100%, then the effect can be lowering blood pressure. Another part of it is inflammation. I just mentioned that before. The number one cause of heart problems is inflammation. That's when you get things like atherosclerosis. You have CVD, all right? You have those things that is due to inflammation. Now, outside sources cause inflammation. That can be fatty diet, smoking, alcohol, all those things that you always are told that you have to avoid or lower in order for cholesterol to come down, in order for heart to obviously become more healthy. Well, chiropractors work to decrease inflammation. Now, decreasing inflammation with chiropractic care is based again upon spinal misalignments that are causing inflammation in the system because our body is not responding correctly. All right? And it all goes back to that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. We'll go back to the stress response, which is the sympathetic nervous system. If there is a misalignment in those areas and it's causing interference, that means the sympathetic nervous system kicks into overdrive. When it kicks into overdrive, it releases powerful hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Now, those two big hormones will flood the system. When the system is flooded, that's when you start to see inflammation kick in, muscle tissue breakdown. Now, when I think of muscle, we're thinking of like my quadricep or my bicep. But let's think about the heart as a muscle too. If there's a misalignment in the nervous system, then that's causing interference, which causes the powerful hormones in our brain to override the system with cortisol and adrenaline. Too much of it in our system is going to cause inflammation, muscle tissue breakdown, which can lead to heart disease, heart problems, muscle fatigue, atherosclerosis. So even though we think about chiropractors coming in and having an effect upon our nervous system based on, say, like a sore muscle, a lower back, a neck pain, yes, those are muscles too, but the same premise works in regards to our organs and our systems and our functions. So if you think about it in that way, the same thing that we do for a misalignment that helps correct neck pain or lower back pain can also have an effect upon other systems and functions of muscles, such as the heart too. With that being the case, chiropractic care can help decrease blood markers of inflammation. The more inflammation, the more at risk for cardiovascular events. That's a heart attack, an MI, a stroke, things like that. Chiropractic care helps to decrease inflammation in the system by regulating that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, the stress and rest systems. So with that being the case, we're trying to get that balance between the two. It's almost like a teeter-totter. Can't be sitting up in the air the whole time, all right? Otherwise you're stuck. You can't be sitting on the ground too long because otherwise you're just going to have no fun, all right? So that's why we're looking to have a nice balance between the two. If we get balance between the stress response and the rest response, that means that obviously nervous system is thriving, meaning that all the functions and systems are now working properly. It can also help decrease chest pain. Now, chest pain is almost the number one sign when people say that they're going to need to go and see the ER because of a heart condition. Millions of hospital visits for chest pain can be avoided by referral to a chiropractor. Costochondritis, rib misalignment, and thoracic vertebral subluxations are all causes of chest pain and shortness of breath that will help when responded to by chiropractic care. So the number one sign of chest pain is usually people go straight for the heart, all right? Something's wrong with my heart. Through constant chiropractic care, we can help with the decrease of chest pain and allow your body to function better and allow your body to thrive. Thinking back on that whole stress response when it came to the muscles. If you're thinking about the same thing, all those muscles that are surrounding the chest itself may have a cause up or build up of inflammation based upon the stress response being around too long, too much cortisol and adrenaline, due to the fact of a misalignment within the nervous system. So the body responds by flooding it, thus leading to inflammation. So I go back to it again, that trickle-down economics, all right, that same theory that Ronald Reagan had. Something happens to the system, all right? Body responds by flooding it with a hormone. The hormone then comes in and floods the system, but it's in there too long, causing inflammation. Inflammation turns to pain. Pain kicks in. People come and see a chiropractor. So if you think about it in that regard, it starts with one and it follows itself all the way down. Now, the reverse of that is taking chiropractic care to get more balance in the system so that we don't flood it with adrenaline and cortisol, and allowing your body to respond so that it can deal with those stress responses a lot better to keep you thriving at the top. So the same way it came down is the same way it can go back up, and it all relates to chiropractic care. The problem today is that people are constantly stressed. They're always in that stage of fight or flight, or that stress response. Your body feels so under attack all the time that the opposite, the rest and digest system, can't kick in. With that being the case, your body is in a state of defense all the time. If it's in a state of defense all the time, that means you cannot heal and thrive and adapt in what you're doing. So it always feels like you've got the handbrake on trying to drive. You cannot do anything. And that's when a lot of the times people said they aren't able to do the things they want to do, which is one of the biggest things that we have here in our office, is asking people about their goals. You could take away that thing, the thing that's annoying you, the thing that's keeping you from thriving. What could you do? All right? It's another powerful thing that we say here in our office as well. If we could take the magic wand and wave it all away, what would you like to do? Set the goal for you in order for you to thrive. All right? That's why I say that you're not living in a state of health, healing, and adaptability, because it's not allowing you to do those things that you want to do. So what do we do with chiropractic care? We have to try and take that handbrake away and get more balance in the system. I have some questions I like to always ask people. All right. Is your spine and nervous system essential for heart health? I think the answer is yes. We already know that because I just explained it to you. What if the nerves aren't firing properly to the heart? That could be a bad thing, right? But what if we could track it and tell if the nerves weren't actually responding as best as they could? Well, the simple answers for you here are yes, it is a massive effect upon the nervous system. The heart may not be getting all the information to fire properly, causing things like inflammation to kick in, which can lead to heart disease, CVD, atherosclerosis, all that sort of stuff. We can track it. We track it through our subluxation station scans. Now, I'm explaining to you what that is. And number one thing that we do in relation to heart health, all right, is called an Insight HRV scan, all right? HRV stands for heart rate variability, and it's the measurement between each beat, and it measures the buildup of overall stress upon the body, okay? This scan shows us how stress affects the balance and the balance between the adaptability and capability of the patient's nervous system. So what it does is it shows me if you're in that sympathetic tone or that parasympathetic tone. And we want to try and get you to be nice and even in the middle, all right? The reason why is because when we have that balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic, you have the ability to adapt. You have the ability to thrive. If you have more ability to adapt, it means you can deal with things better. Make sense? If you are able to adapt to something, it means you're able to deal with it better. It's a powerful thing to say, but if you're able to do that, then that is when you're able to take those mental stresses, that person cutting you off on the road, or that stress at work, or that financial stress, or that argument you had with someone, or that ache and pain that you've been dealing with trying to do the gardening. You can take that measure and you're able to adapt to it better through the nervous system being more regulated and being more in tune with itself, then you're able to manage it better. And that's when you're really in that state of thriving and health and healing. I'll give you the example. Here's a patient of ours, 38 years old, lower back pain, energy fluctuation, and high blood pressure. 6 weeks of care, he came in, he had these symptoms. All right, now I want you to go back and think about that trickle down sort of theory that I had. You had something was affecting him. It came in and caused a physical response upon a system, and it manifested into a symptom. Here's our symptoms: lower back pain, energy fluctuation, and high blood pressure. After the 6 weeks of care, this was his responses. He had much improvement in lower back pain, hip pain, energy fluctuation, and his blood pressure showed some improvement. Now, that was his responses. Now, I use that HRV Insight scan in order to show our responses, which is this just here. Over here, we talked about our adaptability reserve. Okay, this is the scan that we like to show. Now, in regards to it, this man was sitting in what was known as the parasympathetic zone. He was doing pretty well, right? He was in a rest and digest state when it came to his nervous system. Over here is the sympathetic nervous system. But as you can tell, he was sitting in this little white dot right here with a score of 69. After 6 weeks of care, we rescanned him. He got to a 91 adaptability reserve score. So a massive improvement, nearly a third better. The key to it though was his little white dot just here became centered and there was more balance. Because like I said to you before, he needs to have that balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic. He can't be just sitting there with a handbrake on the whole time. He needs to have a little bit of get up and go. You need a little bit of gas pedal. With that being the case, his scan just here allowed us to show that he can get balance back in his nervous system by allowing his body to thrive better, and thus allowed his blood pressure to improve because he didn't have that inflammation kicking in. Back to that trickle down theory that I had, chiropractic care, responding to the nervous system that's been interfered, stopping that flushing of those big powerful chemicals that cause that inflammation, cause that blood pressure to rise up, and allowing his body to thrive and get more balance so that he can adapt and do better with the things that he faces. Here was his EMG, okay? His EMG is his electromyography, all right? And it allows us to show how much muscle tone was being occurred. He had muscle tone in certain areas based on the misalignments of his spine. As you can see here, a lot of red stuff upstairs and a lot of red stuff downstairs. Well, if we go back to what I said earlier, the parasympathetic nervous system sits upstairs. And I didn't mention this, but it actually does sit downstairs too. After 6 weeks of care, we took his score from a 28 to an 85. As you can see, much less going on, right? More even balance when it comes to that parasympathetic area. Taking away those misalignments, those subluxations that were occurring in those areas allows him to thrive, thus getting the results that he was able to see in regards to particularly heart health and his blood pressure coming down. The biggest thing I want you to take away tonight is how you activate your power. You can go a month without food, you can go days without water, you can go a minute without air, but you can't go 1 second without nerve supply. It relates back to what I told you before about how if we disconnected every nerve in your body, your heart would still beat based upon that sinoatrial node. So we want to make sure that your nervous system is talking good. We're activating the power. We're allowing your body to thrive, allowing you to succeed in whatever you want to do. Chiropractic care can help through that through multiple ways, and it allows you to do best, particularly in this month when it comes to heart health, and allowing your body to thrive so that you cannot have to experience that inflammation buildup, have you occur where you might be faced with having the chance of losing a loved one. All right, chiropractic care and the heart-brain connection is so important because just like it helps with neck pain and lower back pain, it can truly help with heart health overall. Thanks so much, guys. I can't wait to see you for our next workshop next month as we go into exercise and March Madness. I really, really hope that you join us then, and I look forward to it. Cheers.